I'm Kristen.
And I'm Maddie.
We're sisters and heavy readers.
Join us every single week to talk stories, interview authors, and collab with fellow book nerds.
Welcome to the Kris and Mad Show. Welcome back to the show, you guys. We have a really great episode for you today where we want to talk to those trying to enter genres that we love, where we would start, suggest starting, and where that could take you potentially to some of our favorite books of all time. So, Maddie, why don't you remind the people what's most important, and then we'll get into this fun convo.
Oh my gosh. Well, of course, we're so glad that you're listening. But if you are and you like to listen to the show regularly, please make sure that you're subscribed if you're on YouTube. Make sure you're following the show if you are listening on Spotify or Apple Music. That really helps us to rate in the charts, which is the most important thing for people looking for a show like this to be able to find us. So we love when you guys do that. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into what we're calling our starter pack. And hopefully this helps you if you're like, wow, we love Kristen and Maddie's recommendations, but we literally have no idea where to start with all of this. And like, where do we begin? That's what this video is all about today.
Honestly, I think that we're doing work for ourselves today that will help us out forever, because I can't tell you how many people in my real life come up to me and are like, what would you recommend for? And in my brain, I'm thinking about my favorites, and I've been reading since forever.
Right.
And I want to be able to help people who have never entered this genre, or maybe people who are new to reading it, something they're finding later in life but are very interested in. So hopefully this helps you if you're new and entering some of these genres, but also we're helping you out for when other people ask you for book recs.
Yeah. And I just think that there are books or series that Kristen and I have read that mean as much as they do to us and are as good as they are for us because we read other things first, if that makes sense. It's like some of these stories build or stand on the shoulders of other stories we read first. So sometimes it's like, wow, we'll get into it. It'll make more sense as we go. But this is not to say like the beginner or like the entry point is not as good as other things that you'll read later. It's just that maybe that thing that you read later is going to hit harder if you read the other thing first. If you kind of give yourself a good foundation in a genre before you bite off some of the greats in that genre, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like the difference between jumping off a diving board into ice cold water,
right,
and like just kind of easing in,
right?
So that you can be a jumper or an easer.
Do whatever
we're going to pretend
want.
like you're wanting us to help you ease into it. So first, we're going to start off by giving you a category, and Maddie's going to give you the actual definition.
Yeah.
You might not have even started reading these genres. You might already be reading them and not realize, oh, that's what I'm reading.
Yeah.
So let's start off in one of my favorites, historic fiction.
Yes. Okay. Historic fiction's one of Kristen's and my favorite genres, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It's just fiction that's set in the past that will mix real historical events, actual historic things and time periods with made up characters and storylines. So it might take place during the Industrial Revolution in America, which really happened, but the characters would be made up. Or it may take place in ancient Greece during political things that actually happened or things that we know from history, but then the characters may be made up. So we love this genre because it gives you access to historic facts and locations all over the world, but it keeps you hooked and gripped with this story and these characters that are made up similar to something that you would have read just like in general fiction or something like that.
Oh my gosh, I love this so much. As you were talking, I was like, should we have done a historic fiction romance?
Oh, historical romance is also great. So we might throw in some of those.
We might have to throw some in. So what we have as like a great entry point for the lay reader is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. Kristen Hanna writes a lot of historic fiction, and we've read a decent amount of it. But The Nightingale is kind of I would say, one of her most popular books, and this is set in World War II. It's a sister book, correct, Maddie?
Yes, and I think that the reason this hits pretty hard is because and why it's a good entry point is most of us are familiar with World War II. So the setting itself isn't going to take a lot of brain power for you to immediately contextualize yourself, understand where you are and why it matters and what the danger is. And you can just focus on getting attached to these characters. And yes, it centers two sisters in France during the German occupation.
Which I have not read yet. I read a lot of other Kristen Hanna's, but it's high on my list.
Yeah, that's a great one to start with.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a standalone. It's not crazy, crazy long, so you can party with that. Now, what's fun is a book like The Nightingale might be a great way to get you comfortable reading this genre so that you can read greats like Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. Pachinko was Maddie's best book of 2025. She read, over 120 books that year?
Yeah.
And she read a lot of good ones, but Pachinko really is what landed for her for that year. And I just finished it yesterday. So I was like, we have to talk about it. Pachinko is a little bit longer, but it is also a standalone.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a part of our history that I really didn't know anything about. Maddie didn't really know anything about. So this feels very new and you learn a lot as you go. But Pachinko is following a family, many generations of a family during, I guess I would say it starts like World War II-ish, a little bit before that. But it's about the conflict between Korea and Japan, basically from the beginning of the 19th century all the way up to 1989, and what that looks like for many generations. And you feel
20th century, right?
Yes, 20th century.
Okay.
In the 1900s.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So I feel like this is it's not too complex. Anybody could pick this up.
Anyone could read
Anybody
Pachinko.
could pick it up.
Yeah.
But it is just a little bit
It's just slower paced than Kristen Hanna's books are.
yes.
And it's way less emotionally sensationalized and dramatic.
It feels a little bit more like a consistent
Yeah.
a feeling of emotion.
Yeah.
But me, as somebody who normally shies away from slower books, I absolutely loved it. So I hope that if you're not a historic fiction reader, that you'll consider picking these up. But this other genre, Maddie, that we have to put in is basically historic fiction, but really focused upon romance.
Yeah.
Because I just have to put Emma M. Lyon in here as an entry.
Right.
For any
because
reader
it wouldn't
ever.
be a Chris and Mads podcast
No.
episode if we did not mention the unselected journals of Emma M. Lyon by Bethany Brower.
So if you love a period romance, I love this. This is Industrial Revolution about a young woman, and they're shorter books. They're it's so weird to say they're fast paced. I think they're fast paced because they're not that long, but they're basically a day in the life of Emma M. Lyon because you're reading her journal entries. But I would say, I don't know what you would put here, but I would not put Bridgerton as a more complex version of that. I would actually go into maybe some Jane Austens for, even though they're also classics.
Yeah, we're getting into
they're period
crossover
romances.
Yeah. Yeah.
That are a little bit more emotionally.
Well, I would probably put Outlander here, honestly.
Oh,
As-
okay.
So yeah,
Smart,
I don't
Maddie.
think Outlander necessarily is entry level for people only because of the length. I don't think somebody who is like, what should I read in historic romantic fiction? I'd be like, you should read this series of many, many, many books where every single book is 800 pages. I don't know that I don't want you to get bogged down.
Maddie,
So-
great call.
But Outlander is very romantic, and it's set in Scotland,
Oh.
and it goes back to, I think, the 18th century, 1700s. Is that right?
I think so. But
Culloden,
Maddie,
the Battle of
it's
Culloden is in 1700s.
Scotland, but then it turns France, turns US, like
Right. They go all over the world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's a sprawling story, and it is longer. The longer books, and it's already a very long series.
And that's by Diana Gabaldon. So I do think that is a good one if you want to try historical fiction that is more romantic. So that would be
Yes.
historic romance.
Thanks for just running with me here, because I was like, hold on, historic
forgot that
fiction's got
genre,
some
apparently.
romance. Okay, so let's move into our bag.
Fantasy. Yes.
Fantasy.
Okay, so we recommend a lot of fantasy, and I can understand why this is probably what prompts the most people to ask this question. Like, okay, Kristen and Maddie, you love all of these. You rate so many of them so highly. Like, where do we start? Like, what's the best of the best, but also what's what? And I do think fantasy is the genre where if you dive off the deep end, you might decide you don't like it, and that would break our hearts. Yeah. So potentially, if you're newer to fantasy, we have some places you could start first to just get into this style, get into this writing style, get into this storytelling style. And then the world, literally, it's your oyster. Like there's so much good stuff in fantasy. Oh my God.
There's a lot of variety. What did it say for a definition?
So fantasy are just stories set in imagined worlds. They don't, we're going to talk about something later that where it can be set in our world. But typically it's set in an imagined world or an altered version of ours, and it includes magic or supernatural elements.
Yeah, that's my shit.
So really within that, there can be so much variety. You can have, so we were just talking about historic fiction. You can have fantasy that feels like historic fiction because it can be set literally anywhere that's inspired by our past. It could be set in a world that doesn't even exist, but it's kind of similar to ours in a way. It could be based on any culture. It is so wide open. It could really be anything.
So in fantasy, we actually wanted to give you two options for entry, because you might say, I want to do a fantasy series.
And a lot of fantasy is series.
Yes.
Multi-book.
Which is really lovely if you fall in love with characters and you want there to be multiple arcs. You want there to be lots of payoff and, you know, just like a larger world, a larger setting, more time with these people. So for our entry series, we decided on the Shadow and Bone series and the duology Six of Crows, which is all a part of the Grishaverse by Leigh Bardugo. So it is 5 books, but it's broken up into like a trilogy, and you spend most time with certain characters in the trilogy. And then there's a duology, which is Six of Crows.
And there's more. There's more in the Grishaverse, but...
And I think she'll keep writing more.
Yeah, but we just highly recommend the original trilogy, Shadow and Bone, and then the spin-off duology, Six of Crows.
Oh, gosh. Six of Crows is hands down the better of the two for me.
For sure.
I think I'm speaking for Maddie as well. But Shadow and Bone was a great place to learn an incredible magic system. Leigh Bardugo did a great job.
Yes.
Explaining it. It made sense to me.
The world, learning a map.
The world is great.
Learning a map that's different than yours. Most fantasy books are going to contain a map in the beginning. So I think it's good to start with a fantasy that's going to have a map that you can study at the beginning of reading and follow throughout the story.
And she even has like a cheat sheet key about like the different types of magic wielders that you can refer to. And so she was doing the most with this. I love it. Also, there is an adaptation.
Yes.
So I don't even think it's completed, and it might have not be continuing after season 2. But I remember season 1 of Shadow and Bone getting so excited about it, and I hadn't heard of the book series yet. So I went to the library, grabbed it. I read the whole trilogy in 1 week, and then I went back and watched season 2 when it came out. I just think sometimes that can be helpful when you're starting fantasy to have some visual aids if you want. So whether you read and then watch, or if you watch and then read, it can be really helpful. And also, again, just more time in a world you love. So that's where we would put you as an entry series. But we also have an entry standalone. If you maybe have less time, you like the clean tidiness of just one book, we have Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wong. Why would you suggest this, Maddie?
I think that Blood Over Brighthaven is a good entry point because it's gripping right away and the world is contained. So it doesn't have the scope of some fantasy series that you could try. And so I just think it's easy to focus on the characters. It's easier to focus on the strife and the tension. And it gets you, I guess it like whets your appetite for the types of themes that you'll find in fantasy novels. And I just think thematically fantasy stories are so rich. And Blood Over Brighthaven packs it all into one tight standalone, which is great. But yeah, I think it just has that super, super gripping beginning. And that's great for people who are like, oh gosh, is fantasy going to be really slow? Is it going to be boring? Is it going to be complicated? And the answer is no, it doesn't have to be. And also you build up that muscle for complexity anyways. So I think anybody could start with Blood Over Brighthaven. And I feel like it's really relevant. And I think people really resonate with the themes of that story.
Yeah, I don't really know who I wouldn't recommend that to now that I'm thinking about it.
I was also going to say really quick before we get too much further, I 100% agree about adaptations being helpful. And Pachinko has an adaptation. I believe they're working on an adaptation for The Nightingale.
Yeah.
They should do an adaptation for Emma M. Lyon, but I don't think that's in the work. You see, Outlander has an adaptation. So we did try to keep that in mind as we were building this list, that if you like multimedia or if it helps you to start visualizing while reading, sometimes it's helpful even just to watch a pilot or part of a film to kind of start working that muscle of imagining things while you're reading. So Yeah, we love an adaptation. That's how our parents started us reading, guys. Like they bribed us with the movies and the TV shows. They're like, if you read the book, you can watch the movie or the TV show, and that worked for us. And then we ended up preferring reading to watching.
Which is really fun. And now as adults, we are forcing everybody to do this because we have our book club on Patreon, but it's a page to screen club. So we always read books and then we watch adaptations. Yeah. And sometimes there's like TV shows and sometimes it's movies. Sometimes there's multiple movies, but it's really fun to experience stories kind of in both mediums. It's like our favorite thing. Okay. So we've given you some entries for fantasy. Let's talk about some that are maybe not going to be ideal to start.
Yeah.
If you are brand spanking new, baby birthed into the world trying to get into fantasy, okay?
Yeah, but we do rate these so highly, so I know it gets confusing. Like we talk about them all the time, and they're infinity stars. So I'm sure you guys are like, well, maybe we should start with that. Don't start here.
I mean,
you can, but maybe
know
don't.
yourself.
Yeah,
know yourself. Okay. So the series that we're really hoping that you get confident enough to read, and you feel like you have that marathon mentality because this series is long, is The Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb.
It's 16 books long.
Yeah. But like, is it even long enough?
Right.
Like, don't you just want to read more from her?
It's so good. And it's broken into sub-series. It's 5 sub-series that make up, so you can bite it off in trilogies and stuff. But I mean, Kristen almost stalled on this series, and she's a lifelong reader just because that first trilogy is slow. It's slower paced.
Well, and the first book is the slowest. But then once I got into books 2 and 3, I was like, okay, I've kind of got the rhythm now. But I do think that it's like so much quality. It's worth the pages and the time. Okay, it's so worth it.
Yeah.
We have a standalone fantasy that is on my TBR. It's The Spear Cuts Through Water. This is by Simon Jimenez.
Yes, and this is just so brilliant, guys. It's just a brilliant, brilliant book, but it is very untraditional. And so I just don't recommend it as a starting point. It's too weird. It's just it's an odd duck, but it's so fabulous. So I would just say, if you read, the Grishaverse, or you read Blood Over Brighthaven and you think, gosh, I love fantasy. I love going to another world that's very different than ours. I like talking animals and weird creatures and using my imagination and people wielding magic and things being very different than they are in our real world. And then you're like, I think I want to do this Spear Cuts Through Water. I just think that you'll have more fun with it and you'll have better expectations going in if you've already read some fantasy and you're already used to things being a little bit quote unquote unrealistic. I also just think for people who think fantasy isn't for them, I will say, if you ever watched movies as a kid and any of those were Disney movies, you like fantasy.
Yes, you do.
Like, fairy tales are fantasy. The stories of just real people with real dilemmas, but something extraordinary or hypothetical happens to them that, yes, wouldn't happen in the real life, but they're real. The characters are real, and they just have to be human with some of these extraordinary circumstances. Or if you've ever enjoyed superhero movies or Marvel movies, like, that's fantasy.
Star Wars.
I mean, Star Wars is sci-fi, but yes, it's fantasy. It's this idea that we're real people, but if the situation was a little bit different, what would that change? And so I just think things like The Spear Cuts Through Water just kind of push that envelope a little bit further. So you have to be willing to go there in your imagination.
Yep.
But the story is still extremely human. The characters are just very human. And it doesn't really matter how bizarre or, different the world is. It's still going to come back to that heart at the center of the story.
Yeah, and sometimes you just want to escape reality, right?
Right.
So that's always fun.
We could talk about fantasy for so long, but we have to move on to a new genre.
How about you describe dystopian for the people?
Okay, so dystopian is probably actually the genre I would have someone start with out of all of these. I mean, read what you like, read what you're drawn to, but I think dystopian novels and dystopian movies and shows are pretty universally gripping for people. So if you're just like, dude, I have no idea what to pick up, I don't even know what genres I like, try a dystopian, okay? Dystopian is fiction that is, so it's not real, but it's set in a broken, oppressive, or controlled society, usually in the future where something has gone very wrong. And so it's always a situational hypothetical of like, what would you do if insert something in the blank? There was a zombie apocalypse. If the government became even more corrupt and half the population got annihilated by some crazy goo. Like, it's just, there's always something, like something has gone very wrong, and typically there's some really intense corruption at the top. And it is always such a banger for people. It's usually very fast paced. It's usually very justice oriented and finding out what is right and wrong in a really morally corrupt situation, and how can you restore some kind of balance or justice to what's happened, or how do we figure out what happened? And so I think those stories just always end up feeling really powerful for people, and sometimes scarily, like, wait, is this
could
maybe
this happen,
possible?
bro?
Yeah.
Yes.
Could this happen?
I feel like these are the shows that I can always watch with my partner. Also, when me and Maddie were younger, these are the things that we would just like binge like crazy.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of great YA and the dystopian genre that
It had a moment.
Oh my gosh. But like my kids are flying through
Yeah.
The Maze Runner, Divergent. But the best in our household is The Hunger Games. And I think that even as an adult, The Hunger Games is a great entry point. Something about the pacing that Suzanne Collins gives you makes these books go very quickly, but she packs a lot in there.
Oh, yeah.
She's willing to really flex our creative muscles and create a world that feels real, but is completely created of her own imagination. So I feel like The Hunger Games is so fun. Also, guys, the adaptations, these are some of the best adaptations like ever.
Yeah.
Nobody skipped lines for this. They like made it happen.
Yeah.
And there's still new ones coming out now. There's the 2 new spin-offs, the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and there is Sunrise on the Reaping, which comes out this November, I believe. So this is a great one if you have teens who are of an age where you can buddy read, or also as an adult, you can enjoy these.
Yeah. I'd say even if you've seen the movies, or even if you read these in high school, but you're trying to get back into reading, or you're trying to be like, okay, what do I like? Reread The Hunger Games.
Yeah.
Like, just read the books. And the reason why is because, again, I think The Hunger Games is going to be a modern classic, for one. But for two, it's just been so culturally impactful, and so many stories that are dystopian. I just feel like Hunger Games is foundational. I don't want to say they were all built on the shoulders of the Hunger Games, because the Hunger Games wasn't like the first dystopian. I mean,
right.
Really, like 1984 by George Orwell probably was more foundational. But I just think it's the pivotal one, and so many things reference it. So if you can just get that under your belt, get refamiliarized with it, get back into the swing of like enjoying the pacing of that genre and the themes of that genre, then you can enjoy some other things that are maybe written more for an adult audience, are going to be a little bit more complicated, have more stakes, larger scope, more things going on, and you'll be like, oh yeah, but I know it feels familiar because Hunger Games.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if anybody like missed that boat. Like,
right.
That people are still getting on that boat. Ever since it was sailing, people have been entering it.
Yeah, but it's just a great one to kind of get back into the momentum of reading, because those are like so addicting.
Yeah, I'm like due for a reread because I just love them so much. So that's where we have like an entry. This was actually a really hard one. I felt like there were so many in every category. We're like, we want to give you 1,000 recs, but we forced ourselves to keep it simple. For a more advanced, complex, longer dystopian, Maddie is giving you the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. I'm going to have you talk about it since it's still on my TBR.
We have talked about this one a lot. I just wouldn't recommend it to start because of the narrative structure, which is a little bit more effort. There's a second person narrative, so that hurts the brain a little bit. It's just not very familiar in fiction. and it's heavier. It's a little bit more graphic. It's a little bit more confusing. Honestly, it's more of a trusting book where you keep reading even though you're not exactly sure you know what's going on. And you're trusting that you're going to know when you're supposed to know, and you will, and you do. But for a while, that means several hours of reading. You're like, wait, do I know what's going on? And sometimes that's not very fun if this is the first book you've picked up in a long time. So I just wouldn't start with it. But it's so good, guys. All 3 books won the Hugo Award, which is a science fiction and fantasy award given once a year. All of the greats have won it. So it's so good. I highly, highly recommend it. But yeah, I wouldn't start there.
Yeah, I cannot wait to pick it up. But when you said it was super confusing, I said, hold on, I'll add to my TBR. But I know I'm ready for it now. Okay, the problem is a lot of books that we love are actually, they can fall into the buckets of many genres.
Yeah, that's true.
So when we say fiction, literally almost everything we read is fiction.
Well, I specified it to be contemporary fiction.
Yes. So I'm glad we've got contemporary fiction for you now. Maddie, why don't you just give us a little bit of the definition?
Okay. So typically contemporary fiction is set in the present day or very recent past. So this is where like it blurs the line, like Kristen's saying, of what is historic fiction and what is contemporary fiction. We're saying basically if it's past 1960, it's still more contemporary fiction. Like if it takes place in the 70s or the 80s or whatever.
A long time ago.
I mean, it is somewhat historic fiction. That was 50 years ago, but we're still calling that more contemporary than like something written in the Industrial Revolution or something.
Well, Maddie, if you think about it, the 1960s was way more than 50 years ago.
Well, that was 70 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think of everything to 2000.
Same.
As a 90s baby. So I'm like, oh, like not that, like
That
the
wasn't that
80s was like
long ago.
20 years ago. And I'm like,
No,
no
it's
girl,
40.
that was 45 freaking years ago.
That's
not
crazy.
to age us, but
No, that was a lot.
no.
Yes, but it what it's saying is that fiction set in the present day or very recent past that still reflects modern life. So still like cars, phones, computers, like our typical tech, the way relationships are now. Like there's not going to be a lot of cultural difference in how we do relationships now versus how they did relationships then, and then social issues. But it does not rely on fantasy, science, or historical settings. Oh. It's just in our real world, our normal stuff. So yeah, it depends where you draw the line. I guess like something written, like something that takes place in 2003 is technically historic for us in 2026, but we would still call that contemporary fiction.
Yeah. No, I like hearing that definition because I would never know where to draw the ding dang line.
Right.
So in contemporary fiction, as a great entry point, this is such an enjoyable snack. We have Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. To be fair, Taylor Jenkins Reid just slays the standalone game. Good. She's really good at creating an atmosphere. This feeling that you have been dropped into whatever setting she gives you, like you are walking around. She's just really skilled at this. But Daisy Jones and the Six follows like a band. Kind of think like Stevie Nicks, the
Fleetwood Mac
days.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's very like, it feels nostalgic, like something you've heard about, but it's all like original characters, and there's even original music in the book. I highly recommend the audiobook as well.
It also has a great adaptation.
It has a bomb-ass adaptation. So I think this is literally accessible to any reader. Well done. But when you go to something a little bit more brain on, we're going to put you into The Secret History by Donna Tartt.
And again, anyone can read this. I just don't know if you're going to enjoy it if you haven't read some like faster paced, lighter hearted fiction first, because The Secret History is a little bit more depressing and it's a little slower paced, and the chapters are so long. The entire book is probably the same amount of pages as Daisy Jones and the Six, but it's only 8 chapters. So every chapter is super long. It's just, it's a structure thing. It's a formatting and structure thing where I just don't know that it's written like as an entry point into fiction. However, again, a modern classic, one of the greats, very good, very gripping, love it so much. Definitely think everybody should read it, but I just don't know that it's the first book I'd hand to somebody.
Yeah, that's what I'm like you can read it. You can read anything you want, but you want to get the most out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So in our next category, we're going to talk about magical realism.
Yes. So magical realism is kind of an offshoot of fantasy, but it's a story set in our real world. So that's a big difference. I think a lot of fantasy, not all, but most fantasy, like I said, is going to have that map at the front.
Yes.
It's going to be a made up world. Magical realism is usually set in the real world, but magical or impossible things end up happening, but they're treated as like normal or not explained. So this could be something like time travel or, give me another example, Kristen. Both of our examples deal with time travel.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like that's the most.
It could be something like somebody who sees visions or somebody
Like
who can
sees ghosts.
Ghosts, yes,
Yeah.
something like that. But it's like still set in our real world. It's
But
just
like the paranormal exists or stuff like that.
Yeah, so it's kind of magical, but it's still mostly grounded in reality. Everything else, there's not going to be world building, okay? Because there's nothing to, like, it's our politics. Water works the same way. Food works the same way.
Yeah.
Aging works the same way. Like, everything that we take for granted as laws of reality is going to be real in a magical realism book. There's just going to be like something that's a little off, a little different.
Yeah, and I think we've got some great ones for you because, again, these are, first of all, they're authors that we've read a lot of. So we feel like you almost can't go wrong with them. But our entry for our magical realism is going to be The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. This is not that long of a book. But it is very, very fun. We are going to deal with time traveling in this, like Maddie mentioned. And I think that it's a book that has been so popular because, like, there's not many readers that would not enjoy it.
Right.
It's written well. It's a very interesting story. And by the end, you're going to be like, oh, what else does she have on her list? What else has she written?
Yeah, it kind of combines a couple of genres, which I think is also a tenet of magical realism, because if you have a little bit of time travel, then you're getting a little bit of history or getting this. Adrienne Young loves to play with the thriller. I would say it's like a subplot. It's not primarily a thriller, but there's always a thrilling subplot to her books. She usually has a good romance peppered into the story, but it's maybe not the focal point. So she blends a lot of things that people like. So romance readers like Adrienne Young, historic fiction readers like Adrienne Young, thriller readers like Adrienne Young.
Don't you think that this needs an adaptation?
It would be such a good movie. Oh my God.
Like, what are we sitting on, Hollywood?
What are we doing?
Adrienne Young has some bangers.
She really does. I would almost prefer to see an adaptation of an Adrienne Young book than a Kristen Hanna book.
That's tea.
It's tea.
I agree.
I will say, I'm just thinking about this now based on this conversation. I do think Outlander could also
time travel.
be magical realism. It's such a long series, and the magical element of traveling through time is really only a plot point for like a chapter of each book. So, not even, you know what I mean? It's not like a thing they're using a lot. They're basically just in the past, and the magical part of it is that she's from our present. Or I guess she comes from 1940 is her original time.
More years ago than we think.
Right. That's almost 100 years ago now.
More years ago.
But yeah, I guess we think of it as historic fiction because the way that it's written is based on so much of the research that Diana Gabaldon, the author, has done on these periods and these locations that she's writing about. And she's really trying to make it historically accurate, but with the characters she created. And she's really not focused on utilizing the magical thing that happened that got them there. So I don't know. It's not as focused on that. But I guess it technically could be both. It could be historic fiction or magical realism.
Oh my gosh, so good. I'm due for a rewatch before we go to Scotland with our book club. Yeah, we do. So we have you entering with Adrienne Young with The Unmaking of June Farrow.
Yeah, magical realism.
Yep. But we're going to kind of ease you into playing with V.E. Schwab's writing.
Yes. And here's the thing. People are going to disagree with us about this, and I love that. I think people will think that V.E. Schwab is very accessible for entry level, and potentially true. I'm not saying you can't start with V.E. Schwab. I'm just saying if I had both books in my hand, if I had The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue and The Unmaking of June Farrow in my hand, and someone had never read before, I would give them Adrienne Young first. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, yes. Same. Because you know what? The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue is one of me and Maddie's favorite books of all time.
It's amazing.
And every now and then, people have said they read it from a recommendation and they're like, I don't know, I didn't get it. And
Or
it's
it was
like,
a little bit slow because I got kind of bored.
and we're like, oh God, please appreciate good art. But you know what? It's okay. It's their opinion. But I do agree with Maddie, even in her Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil, she just takes a little bit of a different approach than like a very, she's just not formulaic at all.
She does not use, yes. So I would say V.E. Schwab does not utilize tropes to keep the reader interested. So there's less familiar. A trope is just something we've seen before. Okay. So it's going to feel familiar. We're not saying a trope is good or bad. We love a trope.
Yeah.
But a trope is something familiar. That's why it's a trope. We've seen it before. Because V.E. Schwab doesn't utilize them very much, you're working a little bit harder when you're reading her book to get yourself into the story and feel like you're comfortable there. And so, yeah, whereas with Adrienne Young, there's a few more things that you've seen before. Now, that said, we would start with The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue if you're starting with V.E. Schwab, because it does utilize time travel and it is very romantic. And so I think those things will grip certain readers.
Her prose
is so phenomenal. You'll want to highlight everything. It's just the way she turns phrases is beautiful.
So obviously, I mean, we recommend both of these authors. It's so much fun to bring them up, especially, God, I hope people are hearing their names for the first time and you pick their books up.
Yeah,
so fun.
But for the starter pack, Magical Realism, Adrienne Young.
We'll just build your TBR for the year. Just do exactly as we say. So for lit fic.
Yes. Okay, lit fic stands for literary fiction. And the difference between literary fiction and contemporary fiction, literary fiction often is contemporary fiction. It takes place in the present. But why the thing that makes it literary is that it's character focused instead of plot focused. Character focused fiction that explores deeper themes like identity, relationships, grief, or morality, often with beautiful or intentional prose. So this is not always going to be a super straightforward writing style, like just tell me what happened, because again, it's not focused on what happens. It's focused on how the characters feel, evolve, change, or what, like why they are the way they are. And it's not always very explicit in its style. It's not going to hold the reader's hand. It's just going to kind of expose you to these characters and their thoughts and their actions, and then your interpretation, what you bring to the fiction, is part of the experience. So literary fiction can actually be a pretty difficult starter genre, in my opinion. I think you have to be the kind of reader who wants to bring something to the reading experience and bring some of your own interpretation to it. That said, we do have some ones that I think are good entry points.
Oh, yeah. You guys have probably all heard of or already seen the adaptation, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, which is in fact a book by Stephen Chbosky.
Yeah, that's how I say it. Chbosky.
Chbosky.
There's not a vowel between the ch and the b. So.
Well, either way, Stephen has written this beautiful work of art, and it is very beloved. Emma Watson is in the adaptation.
Oh,
and so
good.
This is where we would say, like, you can take it on, even if you're not comfortable in this genre. It's not a place that you've hung out before. Maddie had a very lit fic heavy year last year, and it was interesting kind of watching you go through that journey.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you found some good ones. You read Intermezzo by Sally Rooney, which we were saying is a little bit more.
Maybe don't start there.
Yeah.
Again, because of pacing and because it just has, I think you'll get more out of it the more you bring to it. And I don't know how you bring a lot to something until you've read some things. So that's just my opinion maybe. But Perks of Being a Wallflower is a great entry point. I think partly because if we're all adult readers, we've been teenagers before. And Perks of Being a Wallflower just explores what it's like to be a teenager, man.
What a tumultuous time.
And so, yeah, you can bring your own memories or nostalgia or catharsis to that book, and it will make you feel something, and it'll make you remember some things. And I just think it will be a rich experience for you, but you don't really have to have done anything except lived through being a teenager to enjoy that book.
Oh, but Maddie.
What?
We didn't even mention or think about adding Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow.
Oh, that one is so good.
But we really do love Sally Rooney, and she is like the lit fic queenie.
She's so good. But yes, I would say, but again, I would say I don't think Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin is an entry point lit fic. I would put that probably in with Intermezzo.
That's where I fucked up.
That's okay.
Because I did
You started
Tomorrow
with
and
it.
Tomorrow and Tomorrow. And I said, Maddie, what was that?
Well, tell
why-
me if I'm wrong. This is great to discuss. I feel like because you hadn't read a lot of literary fiction and you didn't have any kind of expectation set going into it, you still ended up rating it like a 3.54, and you liked it more and more the further you got away from it.
Yes.
But it was almost like the more you read, the more you like in memory like Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow.
It's one of those books that you like more the more time you're away from it. And I can't wait to go back to it.
Right.
I think that I didn't realize going into it how much I was going to need to be paying attention to subtleties. I think literary fiction, like Maddie said, is not super explicit in everything that's happening. So you have to be able to like make connections yourself as a reader. And as someone who has mostly read like contemporary romance at that time, and I hadn't really, I don't know, played in this genre yet. Yeah, it's not an entry because I feel like it was a 5-star for Maddie, and I could see myself rereading it and being able to rate it so much higher because I went into it just being like,
what's going to happen?
What's happening here? And like not a ton happened.
Well, and I think we need to talk about sometimes, this is in any genre, but in literary fiction specifically, because it's not plot forward, when things do happen, they're not always nice. Like it because the focus of the piece is how will the characters respond and be affected. That's what we care about.
Mm-hmm.
So I think authors are way more willing to have something unpleasant or awkward or tense or unresolved happen to the characters for the sake of exploring what they'll be like under that kind of situation instead of resolving things. So I think there's often this feeling in literary fiction like that's so unresolved. The plot didn't finish. Like we didn't get a happy ending. We didn't get closure. And it's like, but did the characters change in an interesting way? Because that's what we were focused on.
Yeah.
And how did it leave you feeling? And do you feel unsettled in an interesting way? Do you feel like something was revealed to you having read this book? Because that's the kind of satisfaction you're looking for with literary fiction more than plot closure.
Yeah, and this is a good thing to know going into the genre. And you might not love every genre. I feel like
totally fine.
Literary fiction is a challenging genre for me personally, but I like a challenge, especially with how much I read. I need to have books that need me to interact, and I think it's very fulfilling when you finish a story like that because you feel like you gained something through being analytical, and you sometimes have to be very patient. It's kind of like anything in life. Sometimes the more challenging something is, the more fulfilling it is. And so sometimes it's worth the work you put in. And there are some great authors. So maybe we just need to do a whole lit fic episode for you someday, but that day is not today. It's not today. We are going to play with memoirs for you.
Memoirs, yes, are something that Kristen and I basically universally like. I wouldn't say we love, I don't know. Maybe I feel neutral about like documentaries or biographies, but memoirs specifically, which is a story written by someone about their own life, or if not their whole life, a specific period or experience in their life. There's just something so gripping about someone telling you their story. And oftentimes the audiobooks are narrated by the author.
Oh, and that's
it's
fun.
So fun. It's basically just like going out to coffee with them and them telling you their lore.
And then you feel intimately connected to somebody who
right.
they have no idea who
they
you are.
They have no idea who you are.
Like famous or super influential in the world. And you're like, yeah. So like me and Matthew McConaughey are like tight.
Yeah.
Like he's told me stories.
Yes. Well, speaking of, because Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey is absolutely our recommendation for entry into this.
Oh, yeah. I feel like so Green Lights is one of those really special stories. So our parents listened to Green Lights on a road trip, and then they got me reading it, and then I got Maddie and my husband to read it, and all of us rated this like infinity stars.
It's so fun.
Matthew McConaughey is a character, first of all. So
funny.
I think if you're going to pick memoirs, pick people that are very interesting to you or that have been a part of your life. I'm really hoping to pick up Barbara Streisand's memoir this year. We love Barbara from our mom. But Green Lights is one of those stories that if you can listen to that audiobook, prepare yourself for laughter and understanding. People are usually very vulnerable in memoirs, and you get to see kind of like a bit behind the curtain, which is very satisfying.
Well, a fun thing about Green Lights too is, as the title suggests, it's about the things that go right in life and saying yes to them.
Yeah.
And so it's a very motivational memoir. You'll be like, oh, what are the green lights in my life? Like, what's gone well? Or like, I'm going to be on the lookout for things that are going right, that I want to say yes to, that are the breadcrumbs that lead me to where I'm going. And so it's very motivating and encouraging.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's very feel good and it's very funny.
It's a memoir, but like put it in the self-help, put it in the self-development
Yeah.
category. Just really, really good. And then for one of those ones that's a little bit heavier,
Very
a little
heavy.
bit more like will change your entire life. This is probably one of the most impactful books I have ever read.
But maybe like make it as heavy as it gets.
Oh, dear Lord. It is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor E. Frankl. This man survived 4 concentration camps in World War II and lived to tell the tale. And in his book, he doesn't just focus on that, but he also focuses on the aftermath and how that impacted the way he sees the world and his new beliefs. And it's absolutely fascinating and important.
Yeah, I have nothing to really add to what anyone can say about it. There's just a reason it is what it is, that it's sold as many copies as it's sold, that it's so relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think that he probably had the wisdom before he went into the concentration camps, and I think his wisdom is part of why he survived.
Yes.
But now I think his wisdom holds water for us, and we should pay attention because he actually had to test it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
if your life philosophy can get you through that kind of dehumanization and torture, potentially it holds some weight.
But to be fair, I'm a very sensitive reader, so I want like our listeners to know, like, if you're a really sensitive person,
You can still handle it.
yeah.
It's not graphic.
And it almost felt like he took a little bit of the emotion out of the things that occurred in the concentration camp because of his mindset.
Yeah.
And his survival instincts. So he talks to you about it, not in this like, I'm going to try to make you cry. I want to horrify you. I want to give you nightmares.
No.
He's very like, these were the facts of my life at that time. This is what was normal for me at that time. And I knew this was not normal in the world, but this is how I survived it. And then on the other side, it's like, oh my gosh, we can normalize anything in our lives if we have to get through a season of life that isn't, cush.
I just think whether, God forbid, none of us are ever going to have to survive concentration camps.
God willing, my gosh.
However, I do think suffering is a part of life.
Yeah.
And the way that he talks about suffering well is something I think all of us could benefit from learning how to do. Just how to bear the things in life that are not ideal and how to find meaning in the imperfection that is life on earth. It's just a very good one. However, don't know if it's one to start with, again, just because it isn't dramatic and it isn't as so emotional. It is a little bit more clinical in the way that it's told, and it is heavy. And so I just think it's one to sit down with when you've already established your reading habit, I would say, and you're willing to put in the effort and the patience into something you know is really worth it. It is very short, so that's great.
Yes. Okay, we have to talk about classics because we are in a season.
We are. I feel so excited and simultaneously shy about admitting that classics are becoming my favorite genre because I am afraid of sounding pretentious and performative.
Oh, Well, don't worry about that at all. Who would ever say that about you?
I mean,
That is really offensive if people would ever say that.
just confessions. I used to think people who only read classics were kind of pretentious.
I just always thought they were so much smarter than me.
I don't think it has anything to do with being smarter. I don't feel any smarter now than 5 years ago when I didn't get on with classics as well. I truly think it's just kind of exposure therapy.
Yep.
Like I've just read 5 or 6 classics in the last 5 or 6 months and had a great time with all of them. So now I'm like going into classics with the expectation that they're going to be really fun. And I have this way that I do them now. I take a whole month to read a classic. I break it down before I read it into how much I'm going to read each week. I usually pair it with a fun adaptation. So I'm like getting to watch it and I'm getting to read it. I usually learn a little bit about the author and the time period they were writing when I read it. So then I'm like thinking through like what's their agenda? What were they trying to say? And it's so fun. It's kind of like going on a little treasure hunt. I just have a way. I'm doing them now that they're so fun that they're becoming my favorite thing. But I don't think it's because like, I'm so cool because I read classics. I mean, I do think classics are cool, but I don't know.
Such a pleasant surprise from me. I'm like, Kristen, you were always smart enough to do classics. Classics just aren't books that I think you're meant to like absolutely binge and pick up. I'm sure people do binge them, but there's so much to be appreciated when you take it slow. And it feels nostalgic to me.
Yeah, they
classics.
do feel that way.
Because of the way we were raised. Our mother read us classics when we were young, like, some of the recs we're going to give you today. But she read us some classics, but we watched lots of film about classics.
Yeah,
like our parents freaking loved BBC.
They did.
I thought I was weird because I didn't have a British accent growing up because everything I watched, everybody had British accents.
Yep.
So I was like, why am I so basic with my American accent? So I feel like if you can get down, we would love to invite you to try some classics. If you are intimidated, you don't have to even join our Patreon. There are many wise people on the internet that will help break down and help you with your first classics if you want some hand holding. Like, there's no shame in that.
At all. I think it helps. I truly think a little bit of hand holding helps. And that's why it's hard to say classics are entry level, even though classics are taught in high schools with new readers for a reason. I just think they do require engagement, effort, usually someone to do it with you or some kind of companion material.
But it just makes it more fun. So the classics we decided to give you for like an entry, or the classic, is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. This has some of the coolest adaptations ever. You probably already know the story because I can't imagine living life and not at least being exposed to one of these adaptations. But the book is very, very good.
I think because it's set in the United States, that helps with there being a little bit more familiarity.
Yeah,
so
sure.
It's set in Civil War America. So again, if you've had any exposure in school to the Civil War and if you are from the United States, then
there you go.
I think that makes it a little bit easier than maybe starting with like a Jane Austen, which is Regency England, which just might be another thing you're less familiar with trying to go into that book. But if you start with some things you're familiar with, that kind of is half the battle right there.
Yeah, I think so too. For a non-entry level classic, we have The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. And this is actually going to be our read in April
for
with our
book
Patreon.
Club. Yeah.
Yes, we cannot wait to do this. So a couple reasons why. Number one, this is a long ass book.
It's very long.
Which I feel like is not always entry because you might just not have that stamina yet, right? Maybe you're used to running a mile at a time, not 10.
Yes.
Okay? This is just going to be a different sort of pace. However, there is a new adaptation coming out that I'm feral for.
Very
There's
exciting.
An old movie that is my childhood. So I would say
it's also translated from French. It was
That's
also
different.
written as a serial. So again, that takes place that goes into length. It's also just, again, if you're from the United States, it's set in France. And so
You might not know the
I just
history
think
as
we
well.
might not be as familiar, correct, with like the history or the locations that they're talking about, and there might be some cultural things that are not familiar to you, so that you might miss things. That's where the hand holding comes in.
But I believe in us.
100%.
I believe in you.
So exciting.
We can do this. I was hoping it was March. I forgot. We are waiting all the way till April for the adaptation. But gosh, guys, give classics a freaking go. Romantasy. Talk about an entry genre that is taking the internet by storm. This is honestly,
it's a good place to start for
so
fantasy.
fun.
Yeah.
So fun for fantasy. You can stay in it forever. But for Maddie and I, we both started with Romantasy in our adulthood. That got us reading a lot of books, and
Sure did.
And now we have kind of moved not past it because it's something you have to get past, but we have transitioned into reading more just fantasy and a little bit less romantasy, but still such a fun place. And honestly, I think it's a gateway drug for a lot of readers.
Well, it's basically just a blend. It's romantasy is fantasy. It's going to be the things that we talked about in fantasy. There's going to be a map. It takes place in another imaginary world. There's imaginary creatures. There's magic wielding and magic wielders usually. So it is fantasy, 100%. Romantasy is just an offshoot of fantasy where plot-wise, the plot is focused on the romance.
Or the romance takes up a big portion of the
plot.
story.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you like a heavy dose of romance, which, oh my gosh, I love romance. Yes. We have entry with Serpent and the Wings of Night. This is by Carissa Broadbent.
Yes. And the reason that we make it our entry point is because it is so fast-paced. Okay.
Yes.
And the primary female character is great.
Oh my gosh.
Aurea is great, and she feels refreshing in a genre where I was not enjoying a lot of the protagonists I was reading at the time. And I just remember Aurea standing out as just like a fresh breath of fresh air. She was just like, oh, I love this girl. But she is a human being in a world of vampires, and she has to survive a deadly trial. So it's, if you've enjoyed things like The Hunger Games, if you like dystopian, if you like that kind of pacing, this one will be great for you. It's a great entry level, and it is part of a duology. So it's not like you're biting off a big series. It's just 2 books. There are more books in this world if you want to go beyond the duology, but you'll like finish Aurea's story in 2 simple books.
Oh, I had so much fun. I remember like texting Maddie and being like, oh my God, my first vampire book, because I didn't read Twilight back in the day.
Ooh.
And it did something to me. I was like, this is very fun.
It unlocked something
and
for
now
ya.
I'm like, vampire books are fun.
They really are.
October, it's vampire month for me. Okay. So here's like romantasy, I would say less light, and mostly because of the length.
Yep.
Length is going to create a larger cast. It's going to be a larger used world. So it just
Scope. They'll just be greater scope.
yeah. But these can be very entry level. This was like an entry place for me. And so we're just giving you Sarah J. Maas.
Yeah.
In general, we're talking Throne of Glass is our favorite by her. That is a 7-book series. We've got ACOTAR.
I think it's 8 with Assassin's
Is it 8?
Blade.
Oh, count it.
Yeah, it's 8.
Oh, shoot. Okay, so Throne of Glass is 8. Sheesh.
8 books.
We have ACOTAR, which is 5 books. And then we have Crescent City, which is currently 3. Again, I'm saying currently because ACOTAR and Crescent City supposedly are getting more.
Yeah.
So here's how I feel about Sarah J. Maas. I had the best time doing ACOTAR when it was literally my first romantasy of my whole life. But it was not as hard for me because I read fantasy. Like I read Lord of the Rings at 14.
Right.
Okay. So it felt easier to me. I have recommended ACOTAR to some people who have never touched romantasy before, and they have gotten fatigued after book 2.
Because it's long.
Yes. So if you're not used to series, also Throne of Glass is absolutely brilliant, but it starts off YA and becomes adult through the series. So I know for some people, they don't really have the patience to wait to get through the first few books, which I still really enjoyed. So that's just something to take into account.
Right.
That me and Maddie are considering this a little bit less entry because we had already read fantasy, so it felt very accessible.
If someone comes to me, man or woman, and is like, I've just found your page. I want to read some things. I've bought some of the things. I've gotten some of the things to the library that I've seen recommended on your page. Just like, which one should I start with? Like, where am I going to have a really good time? I'm not going to start them on Throne of Glass. I'm just not. It's like, I'm like, if you're an adult and I'm like, read about this 16-year-old girl in a castle, I just think they're going to be like, what? Like, and I'm going to be like, it gets so good and the stakes are so high and the story gets so complex, but you need to read 7 books first. I'm just like, they're just not going to do that.
Yeah.
And the same with, I could say, here's A Court of Thorns and Roses. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. And maybe some people will have a great, phenomenal time with that.
Yeah.
But I hope so.
I think book 1 is pretty
universally accessible. Yeah. I just am like, I think I would probably start with either a standalone or fewer books. And that's why I think I would start with Serpent and the Wings of Night. It's just, I just think it's for me personally, I think Aurea was a more likable character off the bat than either Selena or Feyre were, for me personally. And I just would never give anybody Crescent City to start with Romantasy because it's urban, honestly. Because I think when people are thinking fantasy, they are thinking more historic than they are thinking like Zootopia, but make it humans and fae.
That's so true. But Crescent Cities are also some thick ones.
Yeah, they're like 1,000 pages each.
And I love me a long book, but it can be very fatiguing for somebody new in a genre.
Kristen and Maddie, what should I read? My very first book to start, we hand them a brick tome.
Yeah, and they're like, who do you think I am? Yeah. How much time do you think I have? Okay, golly, our bread and butter. We're going to talk about some sci-fi now.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
And this is just so sci-fi. I think you've already talked about a little bit.
I have.
I'm so sorry about it.
The thing that I want to talk about science fiction is I think that people hear science fiction and immediately think Star Wars, which is fine. Star Wars is science fiction, absolutely, but science fiction is actually broader than just spaceships. Okay, so science fiction are stories that explore imagined futures. So that can be no space at all. That can be right here on Earth. It's just an imagined future. Advanced technology, which can include spaceships, but it can also involve AI, hover cars,
future tech.
Yeah, any future tech. And then it does involve space and science, but it also talks about how scientific changes affect society. So often science fiction is called speculative fiction. You're speculating about what the human race might invent or do in the future. And then you're taking human beings, us, how we relate now, and you're putting us into those hypotheticals to speculate about what might happen relationally, politically, all of these things in the future. And so I think science fiction is more like the opposite of historic fiction. It's like future fiction.
Oh, guys, I love this genre.
I love science fiction too.
You see what other people are like, what if this happened? What if this happened? It just makes the world be like, oh my gosh, I hope I live to be 5 billion years old so I can see all this.
Yes.
So for sci-fi entry, we're giving you Red Rising book 1. Now, Red Rising is an incomplete series currently. The 7th book, we do not have a release date yet, but we love Pierce Brown's Red Rising whole series. But book 1 is incredibly accessible. And it is the start of a very banger series. So if you like book 1 and you get on well with it, please continue. I would say the books get longer. They get a little bit more gritty, more complex.
A lot more gritty and complex, yes.
Yeah. So it's like, gosh, do I love it? Yes. Even the very beginning of Red Rising, the first few chapters, like just stick with it because it might just feel bizarre.
Yeah.
Like I DNF'd after chapter 2 a few years ago when my dad had recommended it to me because I was like, what is going on here? And I just was like, I just don't know about this.
Why are people peeing in their spacesuits?
Yeah, I said, this is freaking weird. And it was just kind of like depressing.
Yeah.
But
it's so good.
My gosh, wait till the corner turns and you're in for a great time.
If you loved The Hunger Games, you will love Red Rising. So yes, Red Rising book 1 could be self-contained. It's not, but you can read it and there'll be some plot payoff and satisfaction just in book 1. Then books 1, 2, and 3 are all told from Darrow's perspective in first person. And it concludes in a satisfying way. So you could just read book 1. You could read the first 3 books and just be done. If you want to read the full series, which my very favorite books in the series are in the back half, the books 4, 5, and 6 move to multi-person points of view. So you're following several characters, and they do get a lot darker, and the books do get longer. And as Kristen said, we don't have the finale book yet, book 7. So it's totally up to you how far you want to go with Red Rising, but you can absolutely just start with book 1.
And we recommend the whole thing if
you want to do
the
it.
Pierce fever.
Yes.
You will just keep going. Cannot wait for the next book. Okay, but
Non-entry
we've got Sun Eater
by Christopher Racchio. I would never in a million years give somebody Empire of Silence if they were just starting reading. First of all, you'll be bored out of your mind. Second of all, you'll hate the main character. Third of all, it's so long. It's a very long series, and there's very little hand holding. So yeah, don't start with Empire of Silence, in my personal opinion. However, if you really love science fiction, and specifically you love the political side of speculative fiction, and you're a big fan of things like Dune by Frank Herbert, or you like a very flawed main character, maybe somebody like Ender from the Enderverse by Orson Scott Card, something like that, then Sun Eater, I think, is one of the more modern. It just finished this year. It's a more modern written science fiction epic saga that feels like that old school sci-fi, and it's a little drier, it's a little longer, it has slower pacing, definitely doesn't shy away from complexity. It's a show don't tell storytelling style, so there's very little explicit. And yeah, I know why people love it so much. I definitely see its merit. I enjoy it. I just have to be very careful with who I recommend it to, because I don't think it universally works for everybody.
I really want to pick this up, and I am intimidated as hell. Can I be honest?
I don't think it's like intimidating in that it's hard. I think the reason I don't recommend it to people is not because you're not good enough for it or smart enough for it.
Okay.
That's absolutely not true. I don't think that's true of any of these recommendations. Like, I will never go up to somebody and be like, I don't think you can handle this. That's not what I'm saying.
Oh, I've literally said those words.
No, when I say I don't recommend something, it's like, I don't think you're going to like it. I don't think you're going to have a good time. That's why I wouldn't start with it, because you will. It's like building up a palate for something. Like, I just wouldn't necessarily start people on like oysters. You know what I'm saying? Like, some people will really enjoy them and really be craving something like that once they get bored with everything else. But yeah, I just think that Sun Eater might be an acquired taste for people.
Okay. And we have some friends who absolutely love it.
Love it.
Give it a go if you're already a sci-fi lover and you haven't yet.
We have made it to our last genre.
Techno-Thrillers. These are popcorn fun.
So much fun. Techno-Thrillers are an offshoot of science fiction. Okay, so they're part of science fiction. They're fast-paced thrillers, but they're built around real or realistic technology like cybersecurity, AI, weapons surveillance, biotech, all of those things, and often have super high stakes. So what we love about a techno-thriller, it's like a sci-fi, but give it thriller pacing, thriller length, which is usually short, but then add in some like crazy speculative tech, usually that hasn't been invented yet.
Oh yeah, I freaking love this. These are what I call my palate cleansers now, because if I'm like in a big series but I'm feeling like, oh, I need a little break real quick. It used to be I'd pick up contemporary romance, and now I'm like, where's my next techno thriller? Like, no joke. So entry, guys, we're actually giving you 3 because we are so generous and we want more people being in this genre with us. Okay?
Oh my God, it's so fun.
So we have Artificial Wisdom by Thomas Weaver. Artificial Wisdom is a book 1. We should be getting book 2 this fall.
I think it comes out in September.
Woohoo! Cannot wait. Artificial Wisdom is also going to be giving you a little bit of like a murder mystery detective vibe. So very fun. Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. Honestly, I could say anything by Blake Crouch is going to give you great techno thriller. He is a very talented artist. He does have an adaptation for Dark Matter, which I enjoyed. And honestly, I'm not going to tell you anything about it. All I know is my husband, who hadn't read a book in like 2 decades, I gave him Dark Matter and he read it in less than a week. So
good.
It works. Also, Ascension by Nicholas Binge.
Yes, very good. This Ascension is great because it will appeal to people who also like a little bit of horror in their thrillers. And it has just a very fun writing structure. So it's so accessible. I feel like everybody would love Ascension. Yeah. So basically techno thrillers are super accessible. There's not like ones that I'd be like, don't pick that up because you probably won't like it. Like Techno-Thrillers are like the thing I would give people who are like, I want to get back into reading and I think I might like fantasy, sci-fi, thriller. I don't know what I like. I'd be like, read a Techno-Thriller.
Oh my gosh.
For sure.
And Ascension is one of Nicholas Binge's books, but also he has other ones
that are great.
Hit the same spot. If you want something longer, like you want to do a trilogy, you want to do something that has a bomb ass adaptation, we're going to give you Silo by Hugh Howey.
Yes. And Silo, you could start. Honestly, I think the only reason I wouldn't give it to someone over like a Dark Matter and Artificial Wisdom is because it's a trilogy and it's a little bit more of a time commitment.
Pacing is somewhat slower.
Yeah. So especially if you don't know if you've read Techno-Thrillers or you don't know if you like them, pick up one of the other ones we just said.
Yeah.
You'll love it. But, go in being like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. And then you'll love it. And then you'll be like, okay, now I want a lot of this. Then check out Silo. But yeah, I just don't know jumping into a genre. If you're like, let me try a whole trilogy. Let me commit to this. Like, just wait a second.
But I do think that it's one of those stories that is so singular. Mm-hmm. Actually, that's kind of like why Techno-Thrillers are so great to me, is because they're coming from the minds of people who are like thinking in the future in ways that I would have never ever gone.
Yep.
And it makes for a really great time. So those are, gosh, I think we gave you 11, or did we add romance in here?
We didn't do romance, and the only reason we could come up with one for you guys really quick. The only reason I don't have romance on the list of my starter pack is because I feel like they're all so beginner friendly. Like I truly think if you know that you loved 90s rom-coms, if you love a romance, if you love a fairy tale and you're like, you know what, I want to take a book to the beach, I want to, get off my phone and do some reading, grab a romance. It'll be great. I feel like we just did a full list around Valentine's Day. You can go find that episode. We'll link it below. And we'll put it at the end of this video, recommending like so many love stories that we love. And truly all of those, I think you'll have a good time with. It will be very easy to fall right into the story and enjoy it.
Yeah, because we do love romance. So
yeah,
that was
so
12,
good.
12 categories, guys. We've got 12 genres. Play in the variety. If you're like me and you love something new and fresh, I basically just be popping in and out of different genres, book by book by book. And it makes me feel like reading is always fun. It's always exciting. It's like the hobby that I get to do in my life.
Yeah.
And so I hope that today you guys could add some books to your TBR, or maybe you found a new genre that you're going to try to play in. If you want to leave a comment and let us know a book in one of these genres that we have not read that was like a best book ever for you, I am looking to expand my horizon. So maybe there's even some genres we didn't talk about.
And just know, sometimes when you pick up a book that's been recommended to you and you're like, hang on, I'm not really jiving with this, you can always pick it up later. Like sometimes I really do think it's about when you pick something up with regards to what else you've read.
Yes.
Because books, build on complexity and they stand on the shoulders of other things. And books are kind of in conversations with each other, whether you know it or not. And I think that's what's so special about something like The Hunger Games that comes around every once in a while. And it becomes a foundation that a whole genre can stand on after that. It's so cool.
We hope you guys enjoyed the conversation today.
Loved it.
Don't forget to like and subscribe and follow and rate and review us. We'll see you in the next episode.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
And I bet we feel good together. If I could just get over myself.